Good morning, class 8. How is everyone? I'm again with you and I welcome each one of you to the Angels History class. See, we started with Regulating Act. We talked about the provisions of the Regulating Act of 1773. Then in the previous video, we also talked about the Pitt's India Act, which was brought to rectify some of the mistakes of the Regulating Act. Now, when we read about the Charter Acts, the Governor General was in favor of extending, of renewing the Charter Acts, the responsibilities given to the company for the next 20 years and then again for the next 20 years. So, after 1773 and then again in 1793, once more the Charter Act of 1813 was a remarkable one. It had a great significance because there were some special provisions made in the Act of 1813 and again 1833, right? So let's begin with the provisions made in the Charter Act of 1813. The company was given the responsibility of all the territories under it for the next 20 years. Now, the first thing that was done, the Governor General control over the presidencies was strengthened. He was allowed to issue orders and directions to any government and presidency of India during his absence from Bengal without the consultation with his council. See, you must remember earlier the Governor General was not given free hand. He had to take the council in confidence. And see, earlier everything was decided by a majority vote. But his position was strengthened a bit by the Pitt's India Act, because apart from the governor, there were 3 more members. So totally it was 4. Naturally, his vote played the decisive. Now, from the 1813 Charter Act, he was even allowed to pass orders when he was out of Bengal without consulting the council. This was a new provision. This was provision number 1. And then number 2, a regular code of all regulations that could be enacted for the internal government of the British territory in Bengal was framed up. So this was point number 2. Point number 1 is the Governor General's position was strengthened because he was allowed to pass orders. And point number 2, a new code was framed up. Right? Apart from this, the next point, the charter laid the foundation of a government written by laws and regulations in British India in place of the personal rule of the past rulers. Indians were not given positions where they could exercise influence or authority. By the Charter Act of 1813, the trade monopoly of the company in India was ended and the trade with India was thrown open to all the British merchants. See, this was an important thing. To break the monopoly of the company, what was done? Barring two things, the tea trade and trade with China. Rest, all the market was thrown open for all the merchants of the British. Earlier, you must remember, there was only one company that was allowed to trade with India, and that was British East India Company. So this was a major change. Now the trade for India was thrown open to all the merchants, because we have talked about it already, that the British Parliament was worried about the increasing power of the company. You must remember, they had started capturing territory in India, and these were alarming bells, right? So apart from this, the government and the revenue of India continued to be in the hands of company, and the company also continued to appoint officials in India. See, this was again an important provision. The British Parliament understood this, that they could not take everything out of their hands suddenly. This would start an agitation from the officials of the company. Slowly and steadily they wanted to tame the company. And this was the reason that during the Charter Act of 1813, only the trade with India, the monopoly was broken, but as far as the appointments in the government and the territories, they were still left to the company. There, the company still had its say. Its power was not diminished in the Charter Act of 1813. Further, a humble beginning was made in 1813 when the Charter Act incorporated the principle of encouraging learned Indians and promoting modern sciences in the country. The Act directed the company to spend the sum of 1 lakh rupees. This was first time that the company was directed to spend rupees 1 lakh. See, so far they had only been trading, or in other words, they had only been looting India. But the parliament over there in Britain could understand that this way they could not go on for long. Apart from this, they wanted to place some Indians on the lower posts for their benefits, and for this they wanted learned people in India. Therefore, they now started trying for modern education, the modern science. So, the modern science was promoted, learning was promoted now. Maybe for their benefit, but at least a beginning was made. And some of the Indians sensed this opportunity. They knew that if a beginning could be made, then later on we can grab on things. See, education was the foremost thing that was needed for India. And for one reason or the other, the Britishers started it. Earlier, the education was altogether different. It was not allowed for everyone, and so on and so forth. Now things were changing. Of course, a beginning had also been made to appoint some of the Indians, but this was just a beginning. So you must remember these three things. Okay, now point number 4. The Charter Act of See, the Charter Act directed the company, okay, we have already discussed about it. Now the Charter Act of 1833, right? Up from 1813, naturally there were some more things which the Britishers wanted to improve upon, and after 20 years they brought another Charter Act, that was Charter Act 1833. So the most significant were 1813, 1833 and 1853. But you must remember that slight beginning was made through Regulating Act, that was in 1773. Then again Pitt's India Act 1784. Then again there was one more charter in 1793. And every after 20 years it was. And then it was renewed in 1813, then 1833, and then of course we shall talk about the police, the judiciary, the army. Properly all these things were arranged in 1853. Although a beginning was made before this, right? So let's talk about 1833 now. The Charter Act of 1833 brought the company's monopoly of tea and trade with China to an end. At the same time, the debts of the company were taken over by the government of India, which was also to pay its shareholder about 10% divided on their capital. The government of India continued to be run by the company under the control of Board of Control. See, even after 1833, again some powers were taken from the company, and yet the government was allowed to be run by the company. What they did, see, you remember 1813, the trade was thrown open, but barring two, that was tea trade and trade with China. But 1833, they even threw open the trade with China and of course the tea trade. This was new addition, but the government was still in the hands of the company. The parliament had not taken over the government so far. They were putting up their governor general so far. So the company was still powerful, although with every Charter Act their power was slightly reduced, but they were still a force to reckon with. Further, by this act, a provision of a member was made for the purpose of making laws. The Governor General, having the authority to overrule his council on important issues, became in fact the real effective ruler of India, functioning under the superintendence, control and directions of the British government. Law Commission under Macaulay was constituted. Beginning of the Central Legislative Council in India took place. The Indian civil services were founded. Parliament control over the company was further increased by the Act of 1853, which laid the foundation of parliamentary system of government. See, with every 20 years, the British government kept on reducing the powers of the company and they kept on increasing their control. Further, what they did was, the Governor General was now answerable to the British Parliament. So far the Governor General was answerable to the company. But after 1833, the Governor General was directly answerable to the British Parliament. Then, now let us talk about the other reforms. Of course, they started the ICS. the Law Commission. All these things are coming up because after another 20 years, we are reaching the stage 1853, the Charter Act, which almost put all the things in the hands of the British Parliament. Right? So we shall talk about the civil services now. After the 1853, the Indian Civil Service, as you know, was the main pillar which supported the structure of the British rule in India. Lord Clive and Hastings made regulations to wipe out the corruption, but they failed to reorganize an efficient civil services. The credit for introducing the Indian civil services goes to Lord Cornwallis. Remember this name, Lord Cornwallis. Just see the photograph. This is the man who was responsible for appointing for the Indian civil services. Okay, he was appointed in 1786. He made strict regulations to ban private trade with the company officials and induced the directors to pay handsome salaries to civil servants. In course of time, these civil servants of the company were so highly paid that the members of royal families in England coveted for these posts. But subsequently, a system of open competition for the recruitments, which came to be known as the Indian Civil Service (ICS) was introduced. This ICS was later, after independence, this became IAS. Nowadays, we know this service by IAS, right? This is the same service, and Lord Cornwallis was the person who started this system, right? Apart from this, till 1853, all the appointments were made by the directors of the company. Very few Indians could compete for these posts as the examinations were held in England. These members of the ICS were appointed as magistrate, collectors, judges, and this setup proved highly effective, and later on this was known as IAS. We shall talk about the army and the administration in the next video. Thanks for joining.